Hello and welcome to the Thriving on Purpose broadcast. My name is Sebastien Richard, and today I'm accompanied by my lovely wife, Elisabeth. And today we're going to be talking about what does it take, what price do you have to pay to have a really strong kingdom marriage? And it might surprise you. We're going to reveal stuff, maybe personal stuff, but we're going to talk about all kinds of things because it's not a one thing. It's probably a multitudinous. There's many factors, many ingredients that makes for a strong kingdom marriage. But I think this broadcast is going to help a lot of people because in recent years it hasn't been easy for a lot of you. It's not because you're a Christian. It's not because you have a strong relationship with the Lord that you're going to have a strong relationship with your spouse. And I had a book years ago called 25 Surprising Marriages. Remember that book, Liz?
Yep.
And she didn't like that book. She says there's so many stories in that book that disgust me. And what she meant by that is that there were some marriages of great men and women of God that you're like, whoa, this guy must have had a great marriage. And it was disappointing because like they're pioneers, they're not pioneers, but pillars in the Christian faith that wrote books, that had great ministries.
You assume that they had great marriages.
So you assume that all of them had great marriages, but all of these 25 surprising marriages, some were great surprises, some were really inspiring, and there was things you wanted to model in your own marriage, but there were others that you're like, wow, how is that even possible? And there were some really horrendous marriages in that book. But all this to show, like I said, it's not because you have a strong relationship with the Lord that you're going to have a strong marriage. And we're going to talk about that today in today's episode. Liz?
Yeah, so, we've noticed that especially, I would say in the last 2 years, it's been a very, very difficult on a lot of marriages. There's been like I would say like a demonic unleashing of demonic powers that have been really trying to assault and break up marriages, especially since COVID, right? So a lot of people were more confined with each other, were in a place where they had to look at their present reality, look at their lives, deciding, I'm dissatisfied with this in my life. And instead of looking at the real problem, the root of the problem that they can fix, a lot of them pointed the finger at their spouse and said, basically, I'm through with this marriage for all kinds of reasons. I don't love you anymore, or I want something else. I'm bored, or, so many other factors that instead of really looking and solving the real problems and saying, hey, let's figure this out together, they basically, decided to separate and divorce.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Liz, because it's true that in the last 2 years, people have had to deal with so much more
stress.
We're talking, some people have lost their businesses. Mm-hmm. That's a huge stress on marriage. Yeah. Some people lost their jobs. Some people lost parents.
Yeah.
To like their parents were died because of COVID or whatnot. So there's been a lot of trauma in the last couple of years where people have had to undergo all kinds of trials that they're not used to.
Right.
And that put a strain on a lot of marriages. A lot of Christian marriages busted as a result. And like I said, it's not because you're a Christian, it's not because you're married and you're a Christian that it's going to be honky-dory and it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And just the confinement, right? Even if you have like 2-3 kids or whatnot, always in the same house, not being able to really go anywhere, and not getting a break that you used to get from the grandparents that used to come and take them off your shoulders. Now you're always together 24/7.
Yeah.
For a lot of people that used to go work and get that break, they were working, but they had that
break,
peaceful environment where they weren't, they didn't have kids after them every 2 seconds, or, doing school, trying to do this online school, trying to do their entrepreneurship, or trying to do their job at home with these kids all over the place. I mean, this has been a huge stress and big transition for a lot of people. Some were able to make it work. Others were like, I just can't stand this. I want school to restart. And so this put a lot of stress on a lot of marriages because it was really a big shifting, and it's like all of a sudden, the government dictating your life, and then you have to kind of, deal with the falling out of all this and try to make this work. And then so a lot of marriages were not strong enough, or not rooted enough in their love for each other and in Christ and doing the right thing, that it just fell apart.
But it's nothing new. I mean, if you look at the stats, and I was surprised when I looked at the stats. We always, like, evangelicals or Christians, were always pointing, oh, look at the world, look at that. Ooh, 50% divorce rate in the world. It's so bad out there.
Yeah.
In the church, it's not that much better. I mean, I remember reading stats. I think it was like pretty much close to that, 50% as well in the church for church members. And now, not all church members are believers, born again. I'll take that point. I get it. But it's still alarming that in the church, there's not that much of a difference. So it's not like we're lights shining for other people to look at and go like, that's what I want for my marriage.
Yeah.
Some of us are, others not. And that's something that Satan uses mightily against the body of Christ, separating couples, breaking off marriages. And what happens to children? That's the trauma also.
Yeah.
One of Satan's great tools is this: you cause a divorce in a family, the children take the brunt of the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it's traumatic for the spouses as well. It's hard to get over a divorce. It's not easy, but the children are young and they're very impressionable, and the trauma, because I know what I'm talking about. I've been through that twice, so I can really tell you that it messes you up a lot. So the children go through that trauma, and then Satan has a foothold in the life of that child, where he can either acquire a legal right to enter through the trauma, through the fear, whatever that caused. He may have a legal right to put something in that child's life that shouldn't be there, and the child grows up with insecurities, fears, all kinds of problems, maybe emotional problems, all that, and you have to deal with that. So it affects the next generation. Yeah. So that's something we don't often talk about. But Liz, so if a couple gets married, let's say they're a young couple, they just got married, they're both Christians, they're both believers, they love the Lord. If they both want a strong marriage, what should they do and what should they expect?
Yeah. So the reason why we wanted to do this broadcast was also to remove the paint glasses that a lot of people have. When they first get married, in the first couple of years, they have this notion of how it should be as a Christian couple. And we've been married for close to 20 years in October. And we can tell you, that we've seen a lot of couples around us. We've talked to a lot of seasoned couples. And, it's not because you're married a certain amount of time that your marriage is going to be a good one. I know people that have been married for 30 years that don't have a good marriage.
True.
And so, it looks cute on the outside. It looks nice. Oh, they've been married 30 years. They basically found a way not to bite each other's heads off, to live civilized under the same roof, do it for the kids. They live, everything is about their children and their grandchildren. But in reality, the real couple, the foundation of that a relationship does not exist. There's no intimacy. There's no friendship. There's nothing really holding it together. And so oftentimes when the kids leave the nest, that's when they fight a lot and all kinds of things happen.
Sometimes they get divorced. Other times they just basically live as under the same roof, but separate lives.
Yeah. So that's why I don't want you to think, well, with time, it's just going to fix itself. I don't really have to do anything. One day I'm going to wake up 20 years later and I'm going to have a great marriage.
So what you're saying basically is time is not an ingredient for a strong kingdom marriage.
It's not.
It's not.
So, you can be married 5 years and have an amazing marriage if you both are willing to work at it, and it's both on your heart to make it successful. And there's all kinds of factors, right, that come into play. So you have your upbringing, how was he raised? How was I raised? So, does he come from a broken home? Does she come from a broken home? There's that factor. So why I mention this is because it's harder for somebody that came from a broken home to have a picture of what a real marriage looks like, of what a solid marriage looks like.
And there's more broken homes today than ever before.
And so you can have two people that came from divorced homes, and don't really know what a real godly marriage looks like. They don't have that blueprint. And then they meet and they marry together. They love each other. They want to make a great marriage. But when the heat comes and the trials come, they don't know how to act and how not to act, because what they've have in their blueprint in their minds is, well, my dad used to react like this, and my mom used to do this like that. And oftentimes what happens is we tend to humanly recreate the patterns that we've seen, right? So if you're used to seeing your mom react in a certain way to your dad when he brings up a topic and she throws pots and pans and she yells at him, then you automatically, because you've seen that for so long, you might get to that point where you end up doing that, not because you want to, you knew that it was wrong, but you end up doing that because that's where the human nature, kicks in. So that's where, we have to involve Christ in this and say, Lord, I don't know, how to have a great marriage. I need your help. I need you to show me how to love that person when things go that way. And sometimes it might even take some Christian counseling, in the beginning, because depending on what you have to deal with and your upbringing, you might have unresolved issues towards your father, towards your mother, or whatnot. And so that can make things more complicated too in a relationship. So sometimes you have to get your own counseling, Christian counseling, to be able to kind of, deal with those issues and not bring those issues into your marriage. And that was actually an issue for me in the beginning, because I had unresolved issues with my dad. I didn't have the greatest relationship growing up. And, we butted heads and all kinds of stuff happened. I lost my mom at a young age, and that was hard on the relationship with my dad and I, and it just created a big tsunami in our family life. So there was a lot of pieces that were broken, and there was a lot of hidden wounds there that I had to deal with, that I had to go consult and talk about these issues and get them out, and realize, that I can't bring this in my relationship. I'm with somebody completely different, and he's not going to be that, he's not going to be like my dad. So I have to really get to know this person that I married and know that he's completely different, and allow him to make his own mistakes and grow that relationship, and not bring other things from my past.
That's good points. And another thing that I've noticed that's very, very important, and that is often missing in a lot of Christian marriages, is for each, for the husband and the wife to each really take to heart the biblical blueprint of what is required of each of them. For example, me as a husband, what does the Bible say that is required of me as a husband? So same for her. And there's a thing today that's a lot, and I've seen that a lot, that there's a letting go of that. The husbands and the wives, it's like they don't cling to that biblical blueprint as much as they used to, because they think, well, those were the traditional roles and we live in different times. True. I mean, we do live in different times. We have to adapt. A lot of times both need to work. One salary isn't enough. And there's all kinds of components that affect the way we live today, that it's harder perhaps to adopt those biblical blueprints and those biblical roles and to bring them into your home. However, it is of crucial importance that you do so, and that you basically have the attitude of saying, what does the Lord require of me as a husband? And what does the Lord require of me as a wife? See, the problem is oftentimes we like to tell the other, what does the Lord require of you? You're not doing the Proverbs 31 thing. You're not like this. You're not like that. And she would do the same thing. And that's not what we're supposed to do. Each should have 100% focus on their part. Now, guess what? And this is the biggest secret. It's not really a secret. It's really true. If both parties involved are 100% involved and committed to following the biblical blueprint that God tells them to do, you're going to have a good marriage. Now, here's the problem, though. It's hard. So that's the problem. It's hard. I remember our pastor when we were going through premarital counseling, premarital course counseling. He told us this, and I thought that was a great point he was making. He said, if it's important to her, Sebastien, it should become very important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, likewise, Elisabeth, if it's important to Sebastien, guess what? Even if you think it's silly, it should become important to you. So even if you think that what's important to your spouse is silly, irrelevant, capricious, foolish, whatever, pay close attention. Because if your spouse is verbalizing, and guess what? For me, it's really, really important that you stop doing that. It's a huge pet peeves. Pet peeves are big. Mm-hmm. Pet peeves are big because guess what? When you do things in a certain way and it becomes an accumulation of pet peeves for your spouse, and you don't care because they're pet peeves, they're like stupidities, right? Oh, it's just the way I do this with the dishwasher, or the way I put away the vacuum, or whatever it is. An accumulation of pet peeves can become a mountain of unresolved issues in your marriage.
They build up.
And they build up. So if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. Always keep that in mind. So if it's easy to do for me to use the dishwasher soap in a certain way, or to not let the water run when I brush my teeth, Liz tells me that a lot of the time, but fortunately we have 2 bathrooms. She doesn't see me wash my teeth downstairs, but when she sees me, I let the water run when I brush my teeth. It drives her nuts. So
hot water.
Hot water. I have to be careful with that, and I have to, just for the practical side. I mean, it's costing money, right? I have to stop doing that. But there's these pet peeves that we need to stop doing because they're easy to do. It's easy to just close the water when I'm brushing my teeth. So if it's easy to do, it's easy not to do as well. So all these pet peeves, if it's important to her, it should become important to me. And the bigger things too. I mean, there's bigger stuff, obviously.
And a lot of people also, I want to address this, that, a lot of people are like, well, I want to have a good marriage, so I won't talk about these things because if I do talk about them,
I stir the pot.
I'm going to create some strife, and it's going to, bother the person. And, there are certain things that you have to close your eyes on, that you can't like always be on the person's case for everything. They will not completely change. They are who they are, right? So you have to live and let live kind of thing. But there are other things, that really do get under your skin that you need to talk about, because if you don't talk about it, it can blow up. And then the person, that's trying to say, well, I'm not going to ever say anything because I want to have a great marriage. I want to keep the peace, bottles up this resentment over time. And then you have the other person that's just like, everything's great and dandy. I could just like live however I want. The person's like so great and always happy and seems to, be fine with everything. And usually it's the woman that's bottling it up, not saying a word.
Usually,
and the man is more extroverted.
Has no idea.
Usually, I'm like,
and
there's exceptions.
And then 5 years down the road,
a couple of like maybe a year later, then the girl explodes, and he's like, "Where did this come from?
I thought we had a great marriage. What happened?"
Yeah, or she lets sin get in her life, and then she's starting to look at other people, and maybe somebody's after her at work, wants to take her out on a date or whatever, and she sees this person as this wonderful person because she's super annoyed with you at home, right? So these are the dangers that we have to be careful of, and that's why it's important to be completely honest with each other and to say it in a kind way. You don't have to tell the person in a mean way, what bothers you. But
do you remember how we were taught in our premarital course? What he said to do?
No.
You don't remember? No. He said. Basically, he said, reassure the person first, and then bring up the issue that is a problem.
Yeah.
So basically, he said, Lizzie, I love you, and I'm so glad that you're my partner in grace and life in this marriage. However, there's something that I want to talk to you about. Your dirty socks near the bed. It drives me crazy.
I didn't remember that.
So he said, always reassure the person that you love them, that you're happy that you have them in your life and then bring up the issue. And I think it's smart. It sounds stupid,
Especially,
but it's smart, because if you just go like ballistic, like, I can't stand your dirty socks near the bed. I've had it with this. I'm going to make you eat them. If you do this, it's not going to be pretty. So, so there's a way to bring up issues that's better than another way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's that, but it makes me laugh because there's a lot of things that you do in the beginning, and then that kind of changes over time, right? So like the first few years you do it that way, and then you kind of get, more comfortable with each other, and then those things can be dangerous where they fly out and the annoyance kicks in, or you have kids, you were up all night taking care of the kids that are sick or whatever, and then whatever pet peeve he brings up is more of an annoyance.
It's a bigger mountain than it should
so you have
be.
to be even more careful of your tongue and acknowledging the issue, even if you are tired and whatnot. And to also be aware that like we were saying, sometimes you have to let things slide. There's wisdom in that. There's certain things that are not that important, and the person has been having a hard time dealing with a certain thing, maybe with a certain kid. You don't want to always be hammering on the head either. So there's important things, but we're basically saying don't bottle up anything that's really important or that keeps on coming back, because oftentimes that will build in bitterness, resentment.
And it's a good point that you're making too, to not make mountains out of molehills, because the devil is good at that too.
Yeah.
The devil will make you focus on, for example, let's take the dirty socks again. Makes you focus, and he's going to make you build resentment and bitterness over stupidities. And like, when you think about it, it's not that big of a deal. It's not a marriage breaker to have dirty socks in bed. But the devil is an expert at blowing it up in your mind and in your heart, so that these things accumulate, and it can really severely derail your marriage if you're not careful. So always mind your character, mind your what you're allowing to seethe in your heart and mind also. So it's great to bring up issues. It's great to discuss things. It's great to love the other one and make sure that what's important to them becomes important to you. But you also want to be reasonable. You don't want to make mountains out of molehills. If the person is good at all kinds of other stuff, and you have to put up with a tiny little thing, well, guess what? Oftentimes we can put up with a lot for a very long time if we do it in love. For example, dirty socks under the bed. That's, again, I'm bringing that up because it might be a common issue with many married people. You can put up with that for 20 years. It's not a marriage. It's not a deal breaker. Mm-hmm. If the person, you can see they're consistent in their effort and love for you, and they care about you, and they do a ton of other stuff great. Well, if they fail at that, guess what? You can let it slide.
Exactly. That's a very different thing from, for example, if he goes out
and parties with his friends
on Friday and Saturday nights, or most weekends, leaves you alone because he's going out to party with his buddies, and says,
that's a big issue.
You could come along, but you don't want to go to these things. So you stay at home because it's not what you want to do. You want to go out with your husband alone, right? So that is more of a deal breaker.
That's a
more important thing, because you're like, well, I didn't get married to be, to work from Monday to Friday and then be alone on Saturday because he thinks it's more important going golfing with his buddies or whatever it is.
That's also a maturity issue. And I find guys struggling with this a lot more. Oftentimes a man, if he marries and he's young, he's going to think he can have his cake and eat it too. His cake and Edith too, if her name is Edith. So the point is, some guys who are immature will think that they can still live the bachelor life on the side and have their wife waiting at home for them. And I remember we had a youth group meeting when I was in my 20s, and it was to prepare us for marriage. And the elders did a great job at the time of really giving us all that juicy stuff. But the elder in question, he said, "You know what, guys?" He says, "I want to talk to you right now." He says, "When you get married," he says, "don't take this bad, don't take this the wrong way, but she becomes your best friend. So friendships, they're not necessarily over, but the way you used to do friendships, or the way you used to conduct yourself with friends, that takes a backseat now, because your wife becomes your best friend, the person you're going to spend the most of your time with, and that's the way it should be. So there's a lot of people who think that their career, for some people, their mistress is their career. You know, there's a lot of men and women.
That they spend
There's men
work.
and women who have a huge busy career before marriage, and they get married, and guess what? That doesn't change. They're still not spending time with their spouse. Well, guess what? Now there's a problem. So you have to make that time a priority.
I know guys also that used to work out a lot before they were with somebody, and then all of a sudden they get married and they think that they can work out the same amount of hours. Now I know you're thinking, well, that shouldn't change because I'm taking care of my person and that's important for my health and this and that. But there's other priorities. So taking care of your health can be done in a way that's less extremist. So, for example, if
the persons you're referring to, they were like bodybuilder types, so they spent maybe 2-3 hours a day in the gym.
Exactly, and 2-3 hours a day in a gym is a lot for somebody that's married, right? Yeah. So there could be like let's say, for example, you would cut 2-3 days in the week, or you would do it at different hours where she's at work or she's gone.
See, the gym thing is overrated. I've always thought so. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing your workout regimen at home. Some people can buy equipment. If you have a big house or a basement where you can put that stuff.
Some people,
you can have a bench there. You can do some stuff there.
You can do that, but a lot of people want to leave because they want to be elsewhere mentally and they want to unwind and whatever. And I understand that because I'm a lot like that. But however, it's the amount of time. You have to look at your week and schedule it so that there's time with your spouse to have quality time, date night, things that are important. And then say, okay, well, I may not be able to work as many hours as I used to, but I'll get this much hours in my week.
Yeah.
So you're not like completely saying, well, that person's taking over my life and I have no more time for myself at all, but you're also making time for them.
And again, it comes down to discussing this with your spouse too. I mean, your spouse might actually say, I like it when you go to the gym for 2 hours because I get time to do such and such. So it might be your daily separation time where you get to accomplish
exactly.
more.
She might like painting at that time or whatever, and then say, well, I'm going to paint at that time. And then we both had our quiet time, away from each other. And then we'll meet and we'll do this together.
There you go. Yeah.
Or we'll schedule this, this day we do nothing of that. We don't do any weight training and we go out for a date night or whatever. We have the kids babysat.
Now, Liz, I'd like you to address in the beginning of our marriage, we were both very committed to our marriage. Okay. Mm-hmm. We both had an idea of what we wanted to become as a couple. And we both had couples that we saw in the church that we admired. They were like, yeah, that's a good model. I'd like to be like them. And so, but we also had backgrounds. We also had a lot of things to learn.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in the beginning of our marriage, we both were committed to praying regularly.
Yes.
For
a strong marriage.
The Lord to give us, to help us to achieve a strong marriage. Now, I'd like you to dive into that. What are the components when you pray that prayer? See, there's prayers in guys in life that they may seem innocent.
They're dangerous.
They can be dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that's I'm not trying to scare you. We should all pray for a stronger marriage. We should all be committed to a stronger marriage. But there's prayers that we don't really understand what it means when we're praying. I remember I read when we're praying for a stronger marriage, we don't understand the components of what it takes to have a stronger marriage. So I remember
we're naive when we start
a little bit naive. I remember reading an illustration in a book. It was very interesting. It was a young guy in ministry, and he had a mentor, an older, wiser pastor, and he came to see him and he says, he came to see him and says, I really want a more devout prayer life and a stronger relationship with the Lord. He says, I want it still strong. He says, very well, young man, I will pray that you have trials. He says, whoa, no, that's not what I asked for. Whoa. I said, I want a better devotional life and a stronger relationship with the Lord. He says, very well, I understood you clearly. I will pray that you have more trials. And the kid's like, what? Moral of the story is, when you pray, have a stronger marriage, it's not necessarily going to be like that. I'm not trying to scare you, but it might very well be like that. So when you pray for a stronger marriage, you could expect some seasons of turbulent seas come your way, and you're going to be like, now, what just happened? Because we think in our little minds, if I pray for a stronger marriage, I'll have a harmonious marriage.
Yeah.
Now, a harmonious marriage and a strong marriage are not necessarily the same thing. Now, you can have a very strong and harmonious marriage, which I is my prayer for you guys. But when you pray for a strong marriage, Liz, take it from here. What's going to happen? What's in box number 1?
Yeah, so, that was our prayer for the first few years of our marriage. We had a lot of things that, just came our way, and we were like, whoa, what is this? Like, there's a lot of, and I'm not even talking about issues, that have to do with us personally, but, the in-laws fighting, and all kinds of stuff that would, job wise would happen with our bosses. And it was just like putting so much stress on us. And we were fighting more because of it. And so we'd pray, Lord, strengthen our marriage so that we stay strong. Because, we both didn't want to split up. We knew that marriages were fragile. We've seen other people, crumble and separate and whatnot. And we're like, we don't want to end up like that. So Lord, strengthen our marriage. And so we noticed that, the heat was going pretty high.
It was
pretty high in our marriage in the first couple of 5 years.
And we're not talking good bedroom heat. We're talking another type of heat here.
And it was like, even with our work shifts, like the decisions we were making and the things that we were faced with was so difficult. At one point in the first year of our marriage, it's like everything was set up for us to not function.
Well,
like
let me just address that for a second. She's right. The first year, it's like it seems everything was set up for us to fail.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is it's proven statistically, okay, that the 3 biggest marriage breakers are, in no particular order, money problems, in-law problems, and sexual problems. And guess what? We seem to be fighting all 3. So we were going crazy out of our minds saying, but we've been praying for a stronger marriage. What's going on?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff were happening, health issues, even job-wise. He was working on an evening shift. He couldn't get a day shift. I was working on a day shift. So we barely saw each other during the week. We basically actually didn't see each other because when I would get up to go to work.
It was really bad.
He was still sleeping.
We didn't see each other all week.
He'd finish at 11:30, be home at 12. I would get up really early. I would be home in the afternoon. He was already gone for work. So, from Monday to Friday, we didn't see each other. And then we had the weekend. That was it. And that was like, yay, try to build a good marriage on a weekend.
You've been building up resentment all week long because of your life situation. Okay. And frustration. And now on weekends, you have to live bliss for 2 days. And then I remember on Sunday nights, we'd get depressed. We're like, I can't believe this is starting over again. You just remember, we just got married. So we were, but that's our particular situation. It's not necessarily everybody. So I'd like to address more like what touches on everybody.
So there's, all kinds of issues and, we're praying, Lord, strengthen our marriage. Why is this happening? Why are we going through such difficult things and all kinds of, things that were like, why aren't our parents like, why are they causing so much trouble for us on both sides? And didn't understand like the whole spiritual component when, years later, when we, God always brought us through it and strengthened us through the process because, he was refining us. He was allowing certain things to happen. And, a lot of people think that God's going to like inflict things and God doesn't do that. The devil inflicts things.
Yes.
The devil sees who he's dealing with. He sees the hearts of the people that he's dealing with, the Christians that are on fire for God. He sees your relationship with Christ. He sees how much you love each other. And so some couples are more of a threat also because of the anointing they carry. Different things like that. And so he's not stupid. He's looked at humanity for many, many years.
Thousands of years.
Yeah. And so he's like, you know what? They're a danger to my kingdom. Yeah. So let me throw more of that crap at their way so I can make sure that they fall apart and they won't be a threat for my kingdom anymore.
There you go.
And see, we've been doing Thriving on Purpose for 7 years. Like we never even thought back then that we would start something like this, that we would have a ministry where we help the body of Christ in different areas and personal growth, leadership, and faith, and kingdom knowledge. Like, we didn't know any of that back then, right? So,
No clue.
but it's foolish to think that the devil doesn't know somewhat. Ever hear of divination? Well, he does know somewhat of what's going to happen in the future.
He's very good at predicting the future based on past trends or present trends.
Yeah.
So he's an expert predictor
of
what will happen. Yeah.
So the devil, knows who's a threat and who isn't. So you have to keep that in mind. But the biggest thing I think that helped us is that we both had a heart to serve God, to please God. We had the fear of the Lord. We both really, really wanted it to work, and that's what really super glued. Every time things went really, really bad, we always were okay. Either together or separately, both prayed for each other and for the issues, and always kept God involved in the process. Never saying, well, I'm just gonna forget my time with God and just do my thing and hope that my human methods are going to work, because there's a lot of spiritual components that you don't see. And we didn't understand all that. We didn't understand at the time how the devil operated. For example, never, when the Bible says never go to bed angry. Well, there's a reason for that.
Don't let the sun set.
The demonic realm is very, very active in the evening and at night. And if you're going to spend time talking about your issues late at night into the wee hours of the morning, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to be good. Right. And so we would notice these things like, okay, let's not talk about any important issues past 9. We'd say that to ourselves.
9 p.m. Especially me, I go to bed earlier than she does. So I started that trend. I was like, you know what, Liz, if we start this, I ain't going to sleep all night. But let's make a date tomorrow morning with coffee to set time apart where we're going to discuss that very issue.
And sometimes you're in the heat of the moment, you're frustrated, you want to discuss it now. But we had to learn, to have that maturity. And he would tell me, I love you. This doesn't change anything in our relationship. I still love you. We're going to resolve this. We're going to discuss it. It's okay. We're going to talk about it tomorrow morning. And we would. Yeah. And then it's like, all of a sudden you can see clearer, right? It's the morning, you're refreshed and you had a good night's sleep. You're not as tired. And then you can discuss it or make a specific time in the day where you're going to talk about it and not let time go by. So, but you don't go to bed angry and like resenting each other and building up that resentment and bitterness. That's the difference, right?
And also another thing that I've noticed that the devil loves to do is one of the best ways to break up a Christian couple, if they both were Christians when they got married, is to get only one of them to backslide. Mm-hmm. If he gets one of them to backslide, guess what? Everything becomes fair game and very possible for the marriage to break up. Yeah. So if you're both committed Christians, if you're both make it a priority to keep your relationship with the Lord strong and all that, and do what you need to do to do that, well, chances are you're going to be very tough nut to crack. And that's perfectly what we want. That we want that strong marriage that's a tough nut to crack. We want it. In fact, we want to have such a strong marriage that that he's tried pretty much everything, it didn't work, and he leaves you alone after that. So that's what you want to get to, but that's not easy. That is very hard.
And so this is why we called it that. There is a price to pay.
There is a price.
We cannot think that we will do no efforts and that we're just going to do a little compromise here and there and it's just going to all work out. There is a lot more to take into account. There's the struggles that you go through because you're developing, right? Maybe you got married, you were young, and you're growing up in maturity, and you're, realizing what's important to you in life. And sometimes, these things don't always align together. And that's where it's important to always talk about things together and pray that God aligns you in similar desires and similar things that you want for each other, so that there's not one that goes off course and says, well, this is what I want in my life, and this is what I want in my life. And, really understanding like a kingdom picture of, the ultimate goal of a kingdom marriage is really to have a common goal together that you both work at and have both of your strengths and spiritual insights and spiritual gifts working towards that common goal. And it's to ask, Lord, because God always has a purpose for each and every one of us. And sometimes it could be slightly different for him and for her.
It can be quite different for
There
both.
can be lanes where he calls you to do something specific. For example, let's say you overcame a certain thing, and you're the you feel God calling you to have a ministry to help women. Well, obviously he's not going to be in that picture, right? But maybe he's called to do something with men, or maybe you both will come together with another common thing that you're going to work together, and you're going to do your ministry thing with the women on the side, and then that other common goal you're going to do together as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
We do some of that together.
Yeah, we have a lot of things that are separate, but we have a lot of things that are in common as well.
Yeah, so like Sebastien has more of a gifting for Bible teaching and for book writing, so that's more of his strength. So he does a lot more of that in Thriving on Purpose, and I have more of a prophetic side, and sometimes more of insights into what's needed in the body of Christ and this and that, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll build a teaching based on what the Lord prophetically showed me. And sometimes it's both of us, right? God's going to give him downloads, and it's like he works through both of us, but just in different ways. And then you guys see the outcome of whatever that teaching was. So, and there's a lot of implication. There's a lot of I do a lot of technical stuff for Thriving on Purpose, and a lot of other things that he doesn't have to worry about. So God will give us strengths and creative juices and spiritual gifts and all that. And they could all come together if you ask the Lord, Father, what do you want us to do? Like as a couple, as a kingdom couple, how do you want us to help the body of Christ? Or what is it that we can do that can help? You might both be doing something that can help, children that don't have parents, that don't have good role models. There's all kinds of programs out there that exist that are trying to help in the Christian world, trying to help kids that didn't have any good, solid parents, And sometimes you have struggles of your own. Maybe you can't have your own kids, and God is calling you to help other kids that are in need that don't have parents, right?
That's true. And you know what? Speaking of different giftings, different areas of where we work, Elisabeth is the one in charge of making this beautiful hat right there. Kingdom Patriot. You see it good? Yeah, it's nice hat.
Patriot.
Yeah, some people right now, it's summertime, you might want a nice little hat. Liz is going to put the link in the comments so you can click on that link and see all the good stuff that is available at the Thriving on Purpose shop.
Yeah, you can go to thrivingonpurpose.com and just click on the word shop, and you'll be led to our store.
As you were talking, there was stuff that I was seeing. You know what? Mm-hmm. There's ingredients also. You can't overcomplicate things if you're going to have a strong marriage. There's ingredients that are basic that every marriage needs. One of them is unselfishness. Unselfishness. There is not one selfish marriage that I know of that has a strong marriage.
Yeah.
You cannot have selfishness and a strong marriage. It's just mutually exclusive. It doesn't work together. So every strong marriage that you will see, they have this in common. All the people in the couple involved, the spouses, they're unselfish. That's number one. Number two, love and respect. Love and respect. Very important to have both. Love and respect, because you can have love without respect. And you can have respect without love. You need both. Okay. Yeah. And I remember there was a book out there called Love and Respect. It's a marriage book. Very good point the author makes. He's basically saying that the oxygen hose for a woman to thrive in marriage is love. So there's like right straight to her heart, there's a big hose that's connected that you pump love in there, the woman's going to be fine. Now, the mistake that we make is we think, if you're a woman, you think, well, love makes me thrive, so I'm going to shower my husband with love. But I'm going to disrespect him once in a while. That's there's nothing wrong with that. That's what the women might think. But see, for the husband, they know they're loved when they're respected. Mm-hmm. Oh, see, you know you're loved when you're loved. But for the husband, he knows he's loved when he's respected. And for most men, respect comes through an acknowledgement of what they do. You know, They provide, they're responsible, they take care of the house. So if the woman acknowledges that in any way, well, you made such a nice lawn, I baked you a cake. Thank you. Just an example. If you have an acre of land like me and you work hard, I always appreciate that when I work hard to manicure the land. It's always a good 2 hours and a half. I'm exhausted. It's sunny out there, so I get in. I'm tired. And oftentimes Liz will say, I made you some good lemonade, or I made you a sandwich. Not a sandwich, a sandwich. Very different, so much better. Anyway, so the point is, for a man, respect is huge. For a woman, love is huge. So make sure you don't get those crossed. Another simple thing makes me think of the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 love languages didn't become the best-selling marriage book of all time by accident. It's because the author had supernatural, Holy Spirit-led insight that showed him the love languages of people. And there's 5 of those. Sometimes I tell Elizabeth, I think there's 6. I think the cooking should have been involved in there, because there's a cooking love language that's very, very important. But anyway, that's acts of service. So there's these 5. I don't have them. What were the 5 love languages, Lizzie? Acts of service, words of affirmation. Physical hugs, like affection.
Affection.
Wait. Quality time.
Quality time, yeah.
And what's the last one? Did I say words of affirmation?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did, because that's the one I love the most. Anyway, there was 5. There's 5. I highly recommend that book by Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. You can't go wrong with that book. If you want to strengthen your marriage, read that, apply it,
and to really pinpoint by reading that what the love language of the other person is. And sometimes it can be a combination of 2. It doesn't always.
Oh yeah.
It's not always just one.
Yeah. Usually it's more than one. And here's the thing: in the beginning of our marriage, I had to decode that, hey, because the problem we do as newlyweds is oftentimes we think that our love language is universal.
Yeah.
I love words of affirmation and physical affection, like hugs and all that. So I thought, Liz, if I give her a hug and I tell her she's done a great job today with the meal for supper, she's gonna be on a 7th heaven. But no, it didn't work out like that. Guess what? Her words of her love language was not words; it was acts of service. And for the first year of our marriage, until I cracked the code, I was in the doghouse.
And quality time.
And until I cracked that code, I was in the doghouse. I kid you not. But when I cracked the code, oh, guys, it was magical. I washed the dishes. I did all kinds of stuff that I thought was just for women. And I started doing that, taking care of doing acts of service. My marriage went to the next level. It was just absolutely amazing.
And we did that in the first few years, barely seeing each other.
Yeah.
Where, he would do certain things. Yeah. I would write him notes, and we tried to, even if it wasn't perfect, we tried to show those acts of language, of love language. We tried to respect that in each other when we discovered them. And that helped, super glue the marriage. Because, absolutely. Like I said, we had a lot of ingredients working against us. Our families, one side wasn't saved, one side didn't, agree on a lot of things. Yeah. There was a lot of friction, a lot of fights for nothing. But, it was the enemy working to split us up through the I'm looking for the word.
The trials,
not the parents, but the
challenges.
Not the step parents. What am
in-laws?
In-laws, yeah.
So basically, it comes down to what I was saying at the beginning. If you apply yourself at your spouse's love languages, what are you doing? Well, you're basically making important what's important to them.
Yeah.
That's the key element here. So it's simple.
So
like
all of this takes work.
Oh man,
this is what we're saying.
You need to basically crucify your own flesh. Mm-hmm. And make the other's needs as important, if not more important, than your own.
Yeah.
So it needs sacrifice. You're going to need to sacrifice time. You're going to need to sacrifice energy. You're going to need to do this, but the fruit will be there. The fruit will be there.
Even if you have the 40-hour job, even if you have the kids to take care of, it just makes it harder when you have more responsibility. But the more that you do it, the more you get better at doing it, the
Yeah.
more it becomes easier to do it, the more you get rewards from doing it. There's blessings that come with that.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about not being selfish, the opposite of that is being selfless, right?
Exactly.
And so there's also a middle ground between that, because you don't want to be so selfless that you don't acknowledge that you have your own needs and you do need certain things. For example, if you're super selfless, you're like, I'm just going to do everything for him, he's going to love me, like crazy, and we're going to have this blissful marriage. But in reality, you're sacrificing a lot of time that you used to give to taking care of your person, let's say. And you need, like, I don't know, one night a week where you do a certain thing for yourself and take care of yourself and whatnot, and you forego that. You're like, oh, it's not important, I can just spend time with him and we can do this as a family. And that can work, but over time you're going to feel that you're neglecting yourself in that area.
Yeah.
And then you might blow up and say, well, I never have time for myself, and blah blah blah
It
blah,
builds up
right?
frustration.
So it's having that middle ground where you are selfless enough to pour that love and acts of service and all that, but are able to say to the person, well, tonight, why don't we do separate things, separate ways? You can do whatever it is you want to do, and I'm gonna take care of myself and read a book, go take a bath, or whatever it is.
And that's
and
fine.
maybe he's going to take care of the kids. Maybe you've got lots of kids, and he's going to say, I understand that time's important for you. I'm going to take the kids bowling. I'm going to go do whatnot, and I'm going to put them to bed. And just that is like, wow, to her. You know?
And quality time, guys, can also be quality time alone. So sometimes, especially when you have a family and you're busy
and you don't have a lot of time to yourself.
You want couple quality time, you want date night and all that, but sometimes you just need, especially guys, we need cave time. And you have to figure out a way to get that cave time to recenter yourselves. Men, we need that cave time. What I mean by that is that, there's a term called man cave, but there's a reason why that exists, is because men need that time where they are disconnected from everything that demands energy from them, so that they can recenter, resource, and fill back up to go at it again. That's how men are made. We need that time when we're unhooking.
And there's different ways that presents itself. I've spoken to some women, they're like, oh, my husband likes to go fishing, but she notices that when he goes fishing, he comes back and he's actually talking to her about God, and he actually felt connected spiritually to the Lord, because he was like completely disconnected in the quietness, and the Lord was speaking to him. So you can't decide what a person's going to do. They're going to find whatever works for them. And for some women, it might be going to the gym and just working out, or going hiking, or going bike riding, or whatever, going swimming, and that's what helps them to recenter and refocus and have some time alone to think and talk to God and just do their thing and be sporty or whatever it is that they do. And so you just have to respect whatever that is for the other person.
So I think you guys, we're reaching 55-minute mark. I think we've given you a ton of great things to apply, because this is not just nice sounding words, and it's really recipe. It's really a recipe, and looking at your own marriage and being like, what's been missing in my marriage? Has it been, have I been ignoring? Have I been too selfish? Have I been ignoring quality time with my spouse? Have I been not loving or respecting them? Have I, whatever it might be, we need to self-correct course. So we need to be able to look in the mirror and be like, okay, here's where I've been at fault, me, myself, and I. Here's where I've been at fault in this. I need to correct my course, because oftentimes the problem is we point the finger, just like Adam did when God says, what happened here? And he goes like, well, the woman you gave me, here's what she did. And so it started.
Made me eat the apple.
So it started there, and it kept on going. And we still have our sin nature that tends to do that. So you don't want to do that. You want to look at yourself in the mirror and be strong enough to look at yourself, acknowledge the fault, and correct it. So self-correction, and pray. If you don't know it, pray. Lord, show me on my ugly side. Show me where I've missed the mark in my own marriage, so that I may correct it and work at it.
Yeah, and going back to the point, I just wanted to say, going back to the point of respect, That is really, really huge. And, in the world that we live in, the reason why I talk about that is because the world that we live in, the society, you open the radio, you open the TV, whatever you're going to watch, it's always going to teach the woman to disrespect her husband, to tell him off when she's not feeling well, to basically discredit everything that he does. Everything that she does is more important. Everything he does is not important. Because they portray men as
big doofuses everywhere.
Yeah. But, when you see your husband is trying, and, some men are not great at this in the beginning, and it takes work at it. But if you give words of affirmation and respect him when he is trying to take the right path in a certain direction, and you back him up, more of that's going to happen. More confidence is going to build. More of a better relationship is going to build, and he's going to develop differently and grow closer in his manhood and in his walk with God, and have more confidence in himself. And you're going to be, you're going to want to respect him even more.
So feed what you want more of.
Yeah.
Feed what you want more of. Honey, you did this today. Thank you so much. I love when you do this. Oh, you just fed it. Yeah. And guess what? It will probably show up again. So do that, and your marriage is going to help.
And, even talking about your emotions, for some men, like we were talking about earlier, for some men, it's difficult to even open up and talk about their feelings, because they're dealing with so many different issues. And for them, it's hard for them to be raw and real. And it, like you were saying to me in the kitchen, for some men, it's like me admitting that I have this issue is a big, it's a big step down. Mentally. For some men, it's almost a step down to be open.
That would be for a whole other episode to tackle this, because there's some men won't open up to their wives because they feel weak. If they do, they feel like they're not being manly enough if they talk about their struggles or whatnot. But this can cause a huge rift in a marriage. See, women are communication experts of the race. So let's not kid ourselves here. The women speak more words a day. They talk more. They express more. So men need to level up and begin expressing how they feel a bit more. I'm not saying you need to become like a woman, but you need to become more open with your wife about your personal struggles and what's making you, like, if you're unhappy, what's making you unhappy? Why are you so mean to me and the kids? Tell me what's going on here. So you need to open up. And I know for guys, it's kind of hard for us to be like, well, here's what I've been struggling with, and it's really been affecting my sleep. It's been affecting my mindset. I've been thinking about it at night. It's keeping me up. So guess what? If your wife loves you, she's gonna be like, hey, let's pray about this right now. Let's do this. Like, I love you and I support you.
Yeah, and we're gonna do a whole other broadcast on that very issue, because a lot of those feelings that that you may be having are a root problem in your purpose, in your identity, in your manhood. And so that's a whole other broadcast to really go in the depth of that and really help you guys out. So we'll do another broadcast on that.
Amen to that. So I hope that this broadcast has helped you, blessed you. If it has, make sure you click that like button. Make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you share it with friends or whoever might benefit from this teaching, and we will see you next time.
And go check out thrivingonpurpose.com. We have you'll see
the academy.
In the navigation bar, you're going to see the masterclass button, and you can see all the courses and the different things that we have to offer. Absolutely. Digital downloads and stuff for you guys.
Yes.
So be blessed
and thrive on.